Your Majesty, dear Laureate Karen Keskola Uhlenbeck, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends of science. On behalf of the Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters, I have the pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the Abel Prize Award ceremony for 2019. This year's prize winner, Professor Karen Keskola Uhlenbeck, receives the prize for her pioneering achievements in geometric partial differential equations, gauge theory, and integrable systems, and for the fundamental impact of her work on analysis, geometry, and mathematical physics. Her work has led to some of the most important advances in mathematics in the last 40 years. Karen Uhlenbeck was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1942, the oldest of 4 children. As a young girl, she was curious about everything. Her parents instilled in her the sense of art and music, and she developed a lifelong love of the outdoors, regularly roaming the local countryside near her home. Most of all, she loved reading, shutting herself away whenever she could to devour advanced science books, staying up late at night, and even reading secretly in class. Her interest in mathematics developed after she had started at university. In 1990, in Kyoto, Japan, Karen Uhlenbeck became only the second woman to give a plenary lecture at the International Congress of Mathematicians, ICM, the largest and most important gathering of mathematicians in the world. It is held every 4 years, and the first woman to do this was Emmy Noether in 1932. Such a shocking statistic reflects just how hard it is for many women to achieve the recognition they deserve in a male-dominated field. The Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters is pleased and honored to have the responsibility for awarding the Abel Prize. This task fits well with the main mission of the Academy of supporting the advancement of science and scholarship and strengthening the best research. The Academy has appointed an Abel board that also has the task of promoting interest in mathematics among children and young people by supporting projects in kindergartens, schools, and science centers. The initiatives include the Norwegian Mathematical Olympiad for upper secondary pupils and the Young Abel Contest for teams in Year 9. This year's young winners are here in the audience. You are important ambassadors for science and mathematics. Fostering an interest in mathematics in young people also requires good teachers. Nils Henrik Abel's teacher, Bernt Mikael Holmboe, was very important to Abel's career. To emphasize the important role of teachers, the Holmboe Memorial Prize is awarded annually to a teacher selected by the Norwegian Mathematical Council. This year's Holmboe Prize winner is Geir Birkeland, a teacher at Engebråten Elementary School in Kristiansand, who is also present. Karen Uhlenbeck is also a teacher, and she has stated that she is aware of being a role model for young female mathematicians in particular. But, to quote her, it's hard, because you really need to show students how imperfect people can be and still succeed. She is a famous and successful mathematician, but she's also very human. Professor Uhlenbeck and all the previous Abel Prize laureates are important role models for young researchers. The Heidelberg Laureate Forum is an annual event where former winners of prizes in mathematics and computer science meet talented young researchers from around the world for mutual inspiration. I would like to thank the Heidelberg Laureate Forum Foundation for having taken the initiative for these meetings. Today is the 17th time the Abel Prize is awarded. The Abel Prize Committee, with members nominated by the International Mathematical Union and the European Mathematical Society, deserves much of the honor for the recognition that the prize has achieved internationally. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Abel Committee, headed by Professor Hans Munthe-Kaas, for their excellent work. The Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters would also like to thank the Norwegian mathematics community in general and everyone who promotes the importance of mathematics in society. Our knowledge society is dependent on outstanding research of the kind that the Abel Prize recognizes. This awards ceremony is an excellent opportunity to draw attention to this. Last but not least, the Abel Board works tirelessly to showcase mathematics and the importance of mathematics. I would especially like to thank the chair of the Abel Board, Professor Jon Grue, for his dedication and hard work. After the ceremony, there's a reception at the Norske Teater, the Norwegian Theatre. You're all welcome there. Your Majesty, distinguished guests, and most honored prize winner, Karen Uhlenbeck. This is a great day, not only for you, but for the field of mathematics, and for all of us who are here today, and for society at large. Congratulations with the prize.
det och jag.
Vi börjar om.
Vi börjar om. Skrik och rop.
Det går fort, vilket rasande fart. I luft och helvete. I mina svisningar som
Vilken rasande fart i luft och helvete i mina bindningar. Kräkas nu eller aldrig. Jag och du.
Han och det.
Vi börjar om. Jag, han och det.
Vi börjar om.
Han, hon, det och jag.
Vi börjar om.
Ja, han och det.
Vi börjar om.
Krossa bokstäverna mellan tänderna. Gäspa vokalen. Kvällen. Ringer i helvete kränas och slottna.
Nu eller aldrig. Jag inte. Nu eller aldrig. Nu eller aldrig.
I think I'm a very lucky person. I can tell you at every point in my life, you see, I never would have become a mathematician if it hadn't been for Sputnik. I never would have been able to get a job on the faculty without the women's movement of the 60s. I took advantage of my luck. It's about a mile back to my house from here. It's nice to see what the river's doing. Everyone makes a big deal about the fact that I'm the first woman to get the Abel Prize. All you have to do is look at history and it's clear. I was in the first generation of women for whom the classes and the positions and the opportunities were available.
Let's toast Karen and congratulations.
The things that I'm known for are actually not that hard to explain. The object that you're actually treating is not a function. You're looking for the whole thing. This is the curvature. We have this action integral, critical points, the Yang-Mills equations. Equations imply a symmetry group. It's magical. It depends on the group. There exists a gauge transformation, the appropriate norm. That took me several years. This is called the Coulomb gauge. Somebody had to do this. It isn't really all that hard a theorem. And I was just there. I was just ahead of the pack. That would be the right way. That would be the way I would put it here. I spend most of my time in this chair. I work like this. I have journal or pad or something, and I work like this. I write my journal in different colors, just because I like colors. This is me when I was 5 years old. I remember sitting for it. This is from a photograph. That's me, and I'm drawing. I had some period of time in which I couldn't do mathematics, and at that time I did a lot more drawing and painting and some music and stuff. Oh yeah, I actually like the ones that are grown outside. Oh. Bob, why don't you twirl me around? Yeah, right, there we go, see? I remember a very interesting incident. I was living in Champaign-Urbana, and I actually visited her a lot, and at some point I arrived. What I had on for shoes were running shoes, probably Adidas. Nobody wore running shoes in the 70s. They were horrified. I don't have the right shoes on, for sure. And I always find the story amusing because, of course, 10, 15, 20 years later, that's all people wore were running shoes. But the most interesting thing is they still quote my theorems, which are 40 years old, so. I still like to do math.
Your Majesty, Abel Laureate, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great joy we today celebrate the 2019 Abel Prize to Karen Uhlenbeck for her pioneering achievements in geometric partial differential equations, gauge theory, and integral systems. What does this mean? Differential equations is the mathematics of change, describing anything from the motion of the planets around the sun to the spreading of a contagious disease and to the bending of a bridge under the weight of heavy trucks. This is a broad branch of mathematics which is essential to science, engineering, and to the technological foundations of our modern society. Geometry, originally the mathematics of measuring the earth, is a main pillar of modern mathematics, describing shapes and forms in general contexts. One example is Einstein's equation describing the shape of space-time bent in a gravitational field around the black hole, and also describing possible geometries for the entire universe. Another example is the standard model of particle physics, explaining the tiniest building blocks of the universe, such as electrons, quarks, the Higgs particle, and 3 of the 4 fundamental forces of nature. Gauge theory is the mathematical language of the standard model and other geometric models in mathematical physics. The idea of applying differential equations to geometric problems goes back more than 300 years, to a time when 2 men both wanted to show the world that they were the greatest mathematicians of their time. Johan Bernoulli had solved the mathematical challenge, which I, as a Norwegian, would like to call the ski jump problem. Mathematicians call it something else. The challenge is to design a ski jumping hill, such that the skier uses shortest possible time to slide from the top of the hill to the jump at the bottom. So you have a point here, and you want to design a slope so that the skier uses the shortest possible time to get from A to B. And it's not the shortest line, it's not a straight line that is best, because it's better to accelerate fast in the beginning, to be steep in the beginning, and then you can slide out when you have got high speed. Shortest possible time. Bernoulli found the solution of the ski jump problem in analogy with optics. It is known that in optics, light rays pass through a lens along the path with the shortest possible travel time. And with this knowledge, Bernoulli found a solution to this problem. Bernoulli proudly wrote a letter to the mathematical community asking if anybody else could solve this problem. Isaac Newton boasted that he got Bernoulli's letter in the evening of January 29, 1697. He claims he solved it in the same night and submitted his solution to the Royal Society before going to work in the next morning. Newton's basic idea is that the shape of the ski jumping hill is optimal when small changes of the path increases the travel time of the skier. Any small change increases the travel time, that's the minimum solution. This was the birth of the calculus of variations, the mathematics of optimal geometric shapes, a topic of immense importance in physics. In the 1970s, attempts were made to apply calculus of variations to important geometric minimization problems of higher dimensional shapes. So one dimension is the ski slope, two dimensions could be the soap bubble and this kind of shape. A familiar example is thus two-dimensional shapes like soap bubbles and soap films spanning a wireframe. If you take a wireframe and dip it in soap and take it up, then the soap film will form a surface which is the minimal energy surface spanning this frame. A good example. Uhlenbeck addressed the serious problem that a theory of Palais and Smale, which guarantees a minimal solution for one-dimensional problems, turns out to fail in higher dimensions due to topological reasons. The extremely influential paper of Uhlenbeck and Sachs from 1981 describe in detail what happens when the Palais-Smale condition is violated and introduces the so-called bubbling phenomenon, which is now a standard tool in the geometric analysis. In the following decade, Uhlenbeck wrote a series of groundbreaking papers alone and together with co-authors Rick Shane, Xing-Tung Yao, Dan Fried, Julian Turng, and others, covering topics in geometric analysis, Yang-Mills equations, and integrable systems. The work of Uhlenbeck laid the foundations of modern geometric analysis. Her perspective has permeated the field and led to some of the most dramatic advances in mathematics in the last 40 years. Uhlenbeck's ideas laid the analytic foundations for the application of gauge theory to geometry and topology, such as the groundbreaking works of Simon Donaldson and Clifford Taubes on gauge theory and four-dimensional topology, and many other works in mathematics and physics. Karen Uhlenbeck's pioneering results have had fundamental impact on contemporary analysis, geometry, and mathematical physics, and her ideas and leadership have transformed the mathematical landscape as a whole. I'm very happy and honored to ask Professor Uhlenbeck to come forward to receive the Abel Prize for 2019. I also have the honor to ask His Majesty King Harald to come forward to present the Abel Prize to Karen Uhlenbeck.
Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I am astonished to find myself in the company of a very distinguished group of mathematicians, the 19 previous winners of the Abel Prize. Very unexpected. My sincere thanks to all involved. Pure mathematics is a wonderful subject, and I feel very privileged not only to have been a research mathematician, but to have enjoyed it and to now be rewarded for it. Here are some thoughts on how I ended up here. First, it is already significant that there is such a prize. Mathematics has been studied for several millennia and has been central to both scientific and philosophical thinking. I can identify two opposite facets: the usefulness of mathematics as a language of science and the intellectual pleasure of invention. Mathematicians tend to be driven by the second and to lose sight of the first, and often there is a long delay from the formulation of the mathematics to its applications. Many thanks to the Norwegian government for establishing the Abel Prize and to the Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters for awarding us recognition. That we may celebrate both sides and remember mathematicians like Abel, whose mathematics we still use today. While my parents had an intellectual bent, as a girl I was not designated for a profession except perhaps as a high school teacher. In 1957, during my second year of high school, the Soviets launched the satellite Sputnik. The United States woke to the realization that as a country we were not producing mathematicians and scientists. I benefited directly a few years later from a few of the many programs put in place to catch up. It was such an important goal that women and minorities were explicitly included in the target audience. During my years at the University of Michigan, these programs fit my background and abilities. I was much encouraged by my professors, and I received a National Science Graduate Fellowship, which funded 4 years of graduate study. My parents were pleased as my education had cost very little, and I was qualified to teach high school. But to progress in a research career, more had to happen. A postdoctoral position and then a professorship were necessary. At this time, it seemed very unrealistic. If I had been 5 years older, it would not have happened. While the first wave of feminism resulted in women obtaining the right to vote, that was 1920 in the US, but earlier, starting out in 1913 in Norway. The second wave of feminism started in the 1960s, with demands for equal job opportunities and equal pay. We all read Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, and Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique. I was having none of it. I wanted to do mathematics, not change the world. How I would do this was unclear, but for the most part, my friends, teachers, and husbands encouraged me. I only applied to programs which accepted women and was helped around discriminatory attitudes and laws. In 1972, the U.S. federal rights law, known as Title IX, unlocked the already battered door. This law prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded U.S. education program. By then, I was an assistant professor, and the legal barriers were down. My understanding is that women mathematicians in Norway also began obtaining professorships in this time frame. This would not have happened without the second wave of feminism. I started my thesis work with Richard Pillay in 1965 in the rapidly developing field of global analysis. Roughly speaking, a function is a transformation between mathematical spaces. In the new view, a function is a point in an infinite dimensional space. Minimization, flow equations, and cumbersome, complicated partial differential equations could be put in a different framework. Ideas from geometry, topology, and mathematical physics were reformulated. I was admittedly entranced by this admittedly grandiose viewpoint, but also set myself to learn the technical underpinnings needed to shore it up. The initial promise of this approach did not really begin to pay off for a decade or so. I credit Xingtung Yao's solution of the Calabi conjecture in 1976 with the start of the big payoffs.
Global analysis was renamed geometric analysis with Yao at the helm, and I was perfectly situated to tackle some of those problems. This is the story of the soap bubbles. Meanwhile, high-energy theoretical physicists discovered that some of the ideas in global analysis were tremendously useful to them. I mentioned the Atiyah-Singer index theorem. Both Michael Atiyah and Is Singer have Abel Prizes. The resulting dialogue between mathematics and physics continues to this day. I heard 4 lectures by Michael Atiyah on the Yang-Mills equations, dug out the very obtuse texts on fiber bundles, and I have to tell you they were hard for me, but I did pity the physicists. And I had the right combination of technical background plus viewpoint to help lay the foundations of the field. The connection between mathematics and physics remained enticing. From physics papers, I learned about loop groups and began a long, profitable collaboration with Julian Turn on integrable systems. Ed Witten pointed out to me the appearance of the KdV equation in what is now quantum cohomology. I sadly have never understood a convincing explanation of this phenomena. As merely an aside, I wonder if this is not just part of the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. If there is a mathematical idea around, it seems as if somebody will use it. Attitude change was an important ingredient in both the success of my mathematics and my progress professionally. The idea of who will do mathematics and science is still changing. It gives me great pleasure, in addition to thanking the Norwegian government and the many people who have encouraged and helped me, to watch the younger mathematicians, many of whom are now women, create new ideas and directions. And while we are looking towards the future, each of us might consider contributing to the health of the planet by taking one less airplane flight in the coming year.